Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. If you're new to the channel, thank you for coming. What happens is we'll have a short presentation here with Morning Watch. It's a little bit different than our usual longer presentations we have on the 8 o'clock sessions. But the Morning Watch, always be mindful to respect families, mods, and each other. And we'll be discussing tonight some of the information that's come out about Kohberger and DNA in his vehicle not being present from the crime scene. What does that mean and how could that occur? And also, there's some, of course, everyone's been watching and seeing the updates of a vehicle. And there's debate of, is this the Kohberger's vehicle that is seen pulling into a certain area, a parking area, within the same time frame of what the homicides occurred, and is it linked or not? And regardless if it is linked and it is Kohberger in the vehicle, then of course it narrows that window of opportunity even further, and we'll be looking at that because it's going to be critical that if that's the vehicle where he's parked and he is a lone offender, you're adding in a extra 100 yards from where the vehicle's parked to where the crime scene of where the victims are. But before we get into all of that, let's start the slideshow and get the information out there. If you have any information on this case, absolutely make sure law enforcement has that information. Of course, Kohberger is facing the ultimate penalty, and law enforcement needs all the information that they can get. And if you have something or you know of something, make sure law enforcement has that so that justice can be found if he is the one that is guilty of these crimes. But one of the big things that we have to look at is, of course, is that they say it happened from the paperwork and the court documents and search warrants that's been issued and probable cause affidavits between 4 and 4:25 a.m. By itself, 25 minutes is not a long time for 4 homicides, especially with an edged weapon. Although violence of action and the close quarter violence that can occur with an edged weapon, I've seen homicides that involved knives, and it's not anything pleasant to see, and it's not always that it's instantaneous or even the person will become deceased quick. Those injuries can linger, and it just depends what type of injuries and blood loss. And it's a terrible situation, as all violent crimes are. But you can be severely injured with knives and not really know it. And it's just, like I said, it's something that when you go to those scenes, you're going to see, unlike with gunshots, typically, which can also, it depends on what parts and what type of injuries from gunshots occur, and how much blood spatter can occur from gunshot injuries. And once the individual has certain injuries, they can bleed just as much as what you can from a edged weapon. But you typically don't see it as much as because you'll have a lot of defensive wounds and minor injuries along with some major injuries that will bleed quite readily and create a horrible crime scene. But anyway, before we get started in all this, we'll see who's in chat. Love to hunt. Good to see you. Kat, Sarah, Betsy, good to see you. There's Deb. Whoop. Everything started over here. Getting the chat. I'm hitting the wrong buttons here, guys. Y'all just have to bear with me. Mrs. Steve's up and asleep. CJK, you're still up. Good to see you. Dave, there's the Waffle Crew. Um, what days do you have these late nights? CJK says, we have morning watch on Sunday night, Monday morning, and on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and is when we have the morning watch at 12:05. Or that's typically the schedule. When I'm on the road, like I was last week, some things change. We may have, and I'll probably do that next week because I'm on leave Monday of next week, going on 2 cold cases through the Midwest. So we may have quite a few morning watches next week. And let's see here. Jocelyn, good to see you. Ann. Ann wants to know what's the best summertime Waffle House menu. So me, it's just waffle and bacon. I'm a waffle bacon kind of guy. Hello, Grace. Good to see you. Yeah, is it? I mean, it's within the time frame, and is it really real or not? I really don't know. But regardless, like I said, it tightens up the time frame a little bit, and if it is, it tightens it up due to the location of where he parked by a lot. And some of the testing since this video, because Mrs. Steve and I were and are going to be conducting some time tests, and I have a slide demonstrating about locations of where I thought that he had parked. This video here that they just released changes that parking and adds on a couple 100 feet. And is it possible? Absolutely. But typically you see that they'll park, and when they park, generally you want to park somewhere where as you go from point A to point B, it's in low lit and low eye proximities that you do not want to be walking by a bunch of people or where people live or where people may be walking. And during those situations, because the longer you're on foot, the more likely you are to be seen. And so typically a lot of people will park in an out of the way area, but extremely close to the crime scenes. And so that's what I was looking at on the upper parking lot. But now that we have this, it'll still fit in as far as what certain things can be done as far as the testing that we're going to do, because the testing comes about that if Kohberger committed these crimes, how was he able to get back in his vehicle and not contaminate that vehicle with anything from 4 violent encounters at a crime scene that would have blood spatter? You would have cast off. You'd have defensive wounds. You'd have possibilities of the victim taking their own injuries, and they may touch those injuries, get their hands soaked with blood, and transfer those blood stains to you and your clothing, and in all parts of your body, not just your arms or your hands or the weapon, but on your chest, your throat, your head. Because when people fight for survival, they'll go for the eyes, they'll go for hair, especially women, and there's nothing wrong with that. But and you would imagine that he would have some type of transfer, and I expect he would have. And I was quite surprised when they said they processed the vehicle and didn't come back with anything. And that's what we're going to be testing this coming up week. But anyway, all right, Mindy, good to see you. And Nan has a good point here. He got to remember that this crime was totally premeditated, and pretty sure he'd focus on practicing his quick exit and change clothing, keep car clean routine. And that's what we're going to focus on. And some of the testing, like I said, I'll have to do it in a manner of whereas we're not going to be creating a training film. And so some of the processing and some of the things I'll take and certain measures I make to not transfer and contaminate, we won't go over. But I will highlight them because when I do the photography with luminol on the blood transfers and the blood spatter and cast off and every stain that you can imagine that would be at a crime scene, with the luminol, you will not be able to see any of the countermeasures that were taken. You just see the reflection of the luminol. So there still will be a lot of information that we'll be able to gather and share with you. Yeah. Yes, I agree with Ann. That absolutely, there was some planning. If he did this and was able to get out of there with no transfer, yes, he there was certain measures taken. Hello, Nan. Good to see you. We got strawberry crepes and pancakes going on already. If real, what sources could have leaked it? It wouldn't have come from Ellie at this point for a strategic reason, right? It may have been gathered by law enforcement early on, and they just didn't get all of the, they got a thumb drive of it, and or someone was watching it early on and saw this and has turned it over to law enforcement and never heard back from law enforcement. There's a lot of different ways that when they did the video canvassing that they may have went through, and they may have missed this one, and someone actually went back and said, "Hey, let's look at this camera," and it popped in. Although if that location is true, it is um, odd that it law enforcement wouldn't have it. So um, if it is correct, I don't know. It's very possible, but it really only tightens the timeline down. Worst case scenario, from 4 a.m. to what it was it 4:05, somewhere around that. So 5 minutes off of that plus walking time. That if it is that location, that you're taking up to 10 minutes off the crime scene, and which, like I said, violent encounters can happen quick. Let's see here. Dave said, I don't think he did. I don't think law enforcement did this, but is it possible they tried to get prints on any of those windows? Absolutely. They would look at the windows, and there's a lot of telltale signs when windows are either forced or windows are open recently or not. And you can tell. I mean, you can go around your house and look at certain windows and see anything from spiders to dust and things, and tell when windows have been opened recently. And whatnot. And would they have done that? I believe so. And that's a good point. That there was a reason he went back. I'm sure he was going to, if there was a big crowd, he may have wanted to enter into that big crowd. And when there wasn't, it was quite concerning to him. Hello, Carol. Carol. And yeah, and I'm going to be covering the layout of that. Um, because of course, like I said, we got 406. It starts earlier when he first gets in the parking lot at 405 something, and by the time they back in, and then whenever they leave later, it's still within the time frame thing. But really, it's when you arrive. regardless of what time he left. It's when you arrive, and because that's when the clock starts ticking, and um, of course, we have other videos, and I'm sure law enforcement has certain um, videos that probably have better timeline than this, especially the one that was next door that they took the little screw in one that was in the light fixture outside. And how much was on that one? Is that what they based everything on? It's very possible. Hello, Mindy. Good to see you. Or Chelsea. Let's see. And here's the layout. And where I was paying attention to, of course, if this is real and where everybody's guesstimating of where that parking lot is and what camera systems off of what building, that the crime scene over there where the back door of the residence that he would have went out, and where the suspicious vehicle activity that is in this latest release is, when you Google Earth it and you put measurement on it, it's 300 feet plus or minus. And so, are you going to bring attention to yourself by running, and or are you going to go that 300 feet past people that might be coming into a driveway? It might be uh, coming out of an apartment. And so it's highly suspicious for a vehicle parked there that is committing this crime. It's possible, absolutely. But I was looking at it from the standpoints of when we first became aware of it, and we looked at those investigators on that embankment at that parking lot that uh, from that back door to that upper parking lot area is only 80 feet. Uh, Secluded, trees, wood line, everything that you would think that out of the normal flow of cars, vehicles, traffic, uh, people won't be walking. Um, and if there's other parking spaces opened uh, prior to where you're at up here, that's where humans are going to, just due to their human nature, are going to park closer to where their apartments are versus the furthest points. And but as a criminal, that's where they go. They go to those low traveled areas, park their vehicle, and so that when they ease out, you don't see them or anything, and you're out of the way, and you can walk through the shadows to get there. So I'm highly suspicious of the video and that location where it's parked, if it's part of this crime or not. So it is strange, but my first guess would be like what the investigators were looking at, and it's that upper parking area up behind the house that you look at in the lower left. That's 80 feet away. That was my first thoughts of where he might be parking, not past these other apartments, buildings where there's a lot of vehicles, there's lighting, and there's cameras that did he miss? And of course, I'm sure he missed a lot of cameras. Criminals miss a lot of things, no matter how well they think they've thought it through. And I don't know if canines were used or not, or if there are certain types of, you could see the CSI when they were outside and they were looking at ground. And, you know, if when we did the transfer stains from the shoe prints, that went for, I think it was 150 or 160 feet. And so, would they have been able to look at and possibly use some type of presumptive test or luminol to see if there was any other footprints? Absolutely. K9, same thing. And they may have been able to find something, but we don't have anything in the vehicle. So there's a lot of things to check on this week. Mrs. Steve and uh, I had a earlier show tonight for my members, and we were discussing some of the materials that we had purchased and preparing for exactly what type of crime scene could have been, what type of transfers for the from bloodstains, and we'll be conducting those this week, and hopefully we'll have something out. Um, um, Maybe we'll have some out tonight on Thursday night, and absolutely we'll have something out on Saturday. Just depends on how much I can get done this evening or later on in the morning when I get up. Love to hunt. Says yes, we're hungry. Well, Nan, you need to get to a Waffle House. You absolutely do. There's True Crime with Frank Master. Good to see you. And this was my first impression. Yes, that when they went up there and they were sitting on that embankment looking down into the house, everything from a uh, individual that is a predator, it screams that back parking lot. Have we heard any more about those tire treads they were seen investigating? No, but I'm sure they have the samples of those tire tracks. I'm sure they collected some of the rubber compounds, and if they can do the lab analysis and connect those uh, tire markings that's on the pavement to his vehicle, I think that would be some very strong evidence, and hopefully they will have something like that along those lines from the lab. Hello, Kelt. Good to see you. Yes, Chelsea. Then, and this is the whole thing is how not only now in the residence, I can absolutely guarantee you that it was a mess. I cannot see it not being a mess inside the crime scene. Not transferring that mess to his vehicle is what aggravates me. How is that possible? And that's what we're going to look at. Hello, Cynthia. And a lot of them do. Not all of them, but there's a certain personality and certain types that want to be a part of that crime and that investigations to just keep tabs of how is it going. Are they suspecting me, which often leads to certain individuals being caught eventually. But some of them, they'll stay away from the law enforcement, but they'll contact newspapers such as BTK and things. And with the accomplice, even with the accomplice, you would have to have almost a some type of uh, capsule or encapsulated everything about a certain part of that car. That if you was a passenger in it and you was trying to not have any type of cross contamination from the crime scene to your vehicle, you would still have to not only have taken the necessary measures for your clothing, but also for the vehicle. And we will be doing some of that. And I won't be demonstrating. I have a pretty strong idea, and I'm going to do it with the least amount of interference to the vehicle, preparing the interior. Of course, I won't be showing it. I'll show you the results of the processing. Like I said, I just don't want to be a training academy for someone that might misuse it in something future. Although anyone can go on the internet and probably figure it out. But I'm going to take what I've know about what I've seen at crime scenes and see how um, uh, well it works. I don't because I would be surprised if it works really that well either. Even when you're wearing gloves and multiple layer of clothing and things. It's still difficult, extremely difficult, not to make a mess. All right. Dave's back driving again. Yes, and that's where I always thought that for the that he would go with this new. If that location is accurate, going 300 feet is what's and not drawing attention to yourself and having certain blood stains, and it takes away the ability that if you're walking down certain areas or through certain areas of being able to disrobe if you are having multiple layers on. I mean, you can, but on a cold, snowy, or not snowy night, but on a cold night, it might not uh, be conducive to not drawing attention to yourself. Hello, Olivia. Good to see you. Hello, Unsolved Crimes Uncovered. Good to see you. Hadn't seen you in a while. And this is exactly true. But with Delphi, he was seen and possibly seen, you know, um, and even on the certain cameras, he exposed himself to it, and he was seen walking. Um, but exact same thing could have happened here. Uh, let's see what else. Who else is here? I'm trying to get caught up in chat. Don't want chat to get too far ahead with me. I looked at those side roads in that parking area. I don't know how many entrance ways are because when you go in there, you can't see exactly which ways. But I know there's um, at each end of the buildings um, that there would be access points. You would think to that back parking lot, just due to the way that the vehicles are parked and that to the right under where the suspicious vehicle, it appears that there's a area to go in and out, and then you probably to the left in between uh, these large dormitories and the crime scene. I think there's a little side street that goes up through there. Andy wasn't hungry, but she is now. Oh me. Um, Kelt says there are only Waffle Houses in a danger zone. There's quite a few Waffle Houses that are in danger zones across the country. Um, and Dave, I don't know if it's true or not. We don't know if I'm hoping that both of them did, and because if they didn't, they absolutely defied the odds because it's so common that they do inflict some type of injury on themselves. It is very common. Well, um, we have those van shoes or pattern that was in the blood transfer, and so we have to look at those van shoes type of imprint that was left. And um, did he trade? Was his planning that well made that he had additional shoes um, and just slip on shoes, slip those off and slipped on some more shoes? Absolutely possible. We just have to see. And is that the reason he wore that type of shoe for that ease of changing from one pair of shoes to another? Very possible versus some type of work boot or something that was laced up. Yes, and that it can, and, uh, that, there's hardly a drop of blood on them, and, like I said, you can watch those and there's plenty of videos out there where you can see where people are attacked, and you'll see where, in open areas where people get away from them and run and escape, but once you're enclosed in a typical bedroom, which most bedrooms are 12 by 14, 12 by 16 rooms. They're not huge. And especially in this house, they may be even smaller and, 12 by 12 rooms. And so there's nowhere to go. And so when you have two victims in each of the rooms, would they have been violent encounters on at least the second one? I would expect so in both rooms. It's one thing to get one, but while you're unless you're extremely lucky and get the as far as the offender being lucky enough that he goes in the right order of getting whoever's awake and the other one is unable and is passed out, that there would be some type of violent encounter, and I think the law enforcement has hinted at that. Oh, Grace, you gotta go to sleep. Well, good night, Grace. Glad you're here. Hello, Purdue. I'll see you in about a week, Purdue. Good to see you. Uh, Purdue is once again, as we travel through Indiana, is opening up her home to us once again, and absolutely um, I appreciate that. It's such a great relief to have someone that uh, has done so much for us and continues to do for our uh, cold cases and allows us a safe haven as we travel through. Appreciate that so much. Yeah, and it very possible that Richter Island was checking to see if they had any suspects at the time. Could have been. And Mindy, that's not a bad thought. That the cut-proof gloves. Um, could he? Absolutely. Did he? I don't know. I'm not. When we're doing our test, of course, with Mrs. Steve and I, when we're trying to do our recreation, of course, I'm not going to be using a knife and even a play knife. We'll just be doing the hand transfers and things. You'll still get everything from you know when you put on gloves and we use the synthetic blood. There still will be able to create almost everything from the blood transfers to the cast off to blood spatter, low velocity, medium velocity blood spatter. So there's a lot of blood spatters, and I took Mrs. Steve shopping um, yesterday on the 4th to get her a matching Tyvek suit just like mine. So we have his and her Tyvek suit so that we can be able to go out and test and see how it looks. All right, let's get the caught back up. Um, do you believe someone cleaned up the crime scene in Idaho, Mr. C? There's always a chance they may contaminate it, but clean it up, no. Oh, okay, Josh. That's great to hear that your death surgery went well. Good to hear. Absolutely. Great. Hope he gets recovered quick. Yes, there's all different love to hunt. There's all different ways that he may have, bagged up and changed clothes, absolutely. Let's see what else going on in chat. Yes, unsolved crimes. I've been good and good. Hope you're doing well also. Hello, Gail. Chaos. It's good to see that your 3-year-old is like seeing me. That made my night. Thank you. Um, I don't know if they released the size of that Van shoe print or not. I really can't remember. Oh yes, people get cut all the time. They go to the ER, absolutely, and get caught. Yeah, Dave. Yeah, when you look at what Richard Allen and BK between the two crimes, you have this individual that goes to court and presents himself in this manner, and then of course you have those pictures that we all see of Richard Allen. Absolutely, two different personalities. And there is a couple of different theories about why he went to that. Was he hurt, or was he going to um, go so that the doctor would be able to examine him and see he had no cuts and would document that? Yeah, let's see what else going on here. Thank you, Purdue. I'm glad. I'm looking forward to getting up there. Get me a good cup of coffee. You evidently, Amanda, Mrs. Steve. She would shred you like a newspaper. You came her with a fake knife, even. Yes. Uh, yeah, I'm not going to give her cause that. Oh, I didn't know it was a fake knife. Not, not that I think she would ever do anything like that, but I'm never going to give anyone. I'm not even going to attack any adult with a real or fake knife. I'm not giving anyone a chance to say, "Well, I thought it was real." Yeah. Let's see. Time to get called up. I heard the Van shoe print was size 8. I'm not sure if that's a fact, but it was mentioned by someone. Yeah, it'd be a small shoe for because I thought Kohberger was above average height. Nerve secrets. I'm going to need you to repeat everything from the last 38 minutes. Yes, just slide the little bar all the way across, and I will say everything. Oh, that's funny. Uh, Victoria Jones says that the best friend also wore Van shoes. Um, I didn't know anything about Vans shoes until I asked my daughter, and I said, "Do you have you heard of Vans shoes?" And she said, "Yes, I have them." And so that's what when Mrs. Steve did the blood transfers, synthetic blood transfers onto the tiles, she wore those, and it was surprising how well that the blood transfers and for what distance they were able to transfer, because you could easily identify them from anywhere from probably the first 10 feet all the way out at certain times, probably close to 100 feet. You could still tell the shoe pattern. And yeah, Purdue, how many times with a brutal knife homicide is there no evidence left at the scene like Delphi? And, you know, there's evidence there. It's just what do you interpret as evidence? There's going to be certain things, how much contact there was. Are they right-handed, left-handed? Are there shoe prints, footprints, handprints in the mud? Um, and it's just how you decide and how you process that crime scene of what evidence is, and and hopefully the FBI and the crime scene techs were able to gather all the evidence. Um, you know, but we'll see because um, I think I've said that there was some oddities of three or four really strange things. Plus, we have the bullet and from the crime scene, but there was other things noted, and I'm absolutely curious of what those oddities were, and hopefully we'll find out soon. Oh, another says, "Oh man, but that's not what I meant." Fine. Uh-oh. What did I love this name. Thank you. I try to stay calm. There's not much that gets me upset, or when I do get upset, there's really not. This is about as excited as I get most of the time. Absolutely. Send us any type of image. I appreciate that. That'd be very kind of you. And uh, uh, absolutely, if any time that I can do anything for y'all, let me know, and I absolutely will. Yeah, I didn't know how big Vans shoes were. I've never had any. Thank you, Unsolved Crime. That's very kind. Unearthed secrets. I used to wear them in my youth. You're a youngster still. Cynthia, yeah. People were saying the shoe print was allegedly left by someone else, not by BK. But the probable cause indicated that it was supporting evidence of the surviving witness that um, the offender walked directly past where she said, and it was as supporting evidence of that. Um, and so, if there's other people saying certain things, they'd have to explain why would law enforcement put someone else's footprints as supporting evidence of BK, because that don't make sense. And but they may be absolutely correct, but and how would they be having access to the crime scene? Now, did someone enter and accidentally cross-contaminate or contaminate any part of the crime scene? It's possible, absolutely. But law enforcement put in there that they, and I read it from the standpoint that they were saying that it was supporting evidence that supported the surviving witness that um, a man with bushy eyebrows walked directly in front of my door, and they found those shoe prints. Now, that's the way I took it. Doesn't mean that's the only way, but that's the way I took it. A little 2 cents. Georgia guy in Vans. That's cute. Wonder if Unsolved had ever been to a Waffle House. Um, I don't know if she has or not. I don't know if I'm sure that Chaos at Klein is connected with a lot of different states. Yeah, and I believe I agree with you that after 4 attacks, yeah, he had to be shook. Yeah, she they give Denny's a run for the money. Amazing. Thanks, Dave. Now I want waffles. That's cute. Yeah, yeah, I do. That's about like I said. That's about as you know uh, as upsetting when you're seeing a potential evidence getting destroyed. That that does kind of aggravate one. Yeah, Nan, I'm out of touch just like you. Steve, we haven't heard much about these other three unidentified CODIS DNA return. What is your take on that? Also, the animal hair retrieve. What if it wasn't Murphy's? Um, and yes, uh, animal hair. It's like all DNA. Um, if they can have some type of supporting evidence, because DNA doesn't have a timestamp on it. When was it deposited? Was it deposited well before the crime, during the crime, or um, which is really the only two windows that we have on this? Because unless some individual went into the crime scene afterwards, uh, from those 4 o'clock until it was secured by law enforcement, that window is very narrow. And there's only so many people, and they would probably identify all of those, and they would be identified. So we have to go back that these DNA profiles are either pre-crime or during the crime. And of course, the defense is going to use them that, oh, these unknowns are absolutely during the crime. They're not pre-crime, and we'll just have to figure out which way it goes. Do I think that these DNA profiles will be found out? Yes. It may be somebody that was from the investigative team. They just haven't got a good full profile of that DNA profile, or it's just a partial, and it may, or it can be from someone that went to school there um, a year before and lived in that house and on some previous or attended the house on a party. There's so many different ways DNA can work its way into a crime scene, and same for the animal hair. Is Purdue going tonight? Night? Oh, okay, Purdue. I'll see you in a little bit. Let's see. I'll see you in probably what 5 days. Thank you. Gail says, "Do you believe that the sheath was planted?" I always thought that it was left or had possibly been taken off his belt or it came on, but after reading and looking at certain things in his survey, there is a possibility that it could be some type of a calling card signature, whatever you want to call it, that he did leave it with intent. That'd be strange, but Thunder Angel, a man size 8 shoes, a woman's 9. Could the witness have gone to look out the door after he left? Just one. You know, we're just working off that probable cause affidavit, and you know, it says it saw him walking through there. Now, did they not put more information in? They could have. She may have uh, exited and watched and seen which way when he went out the back door, which way did he turn? I don't know. There's so many possibilities, or she could have just simply closed the door, locked it, and went to sleep. We don't know. Only thing we know is that law enforcement didn't get there for many, many hours. Men's shoes run wider. Good thing. Uh, I have extremely wide feet. I have to wear 4Es. Otherwise, I just tear shoes. The size of shoes just split open. I just have wide feet. Yes. Alpaca says, don't you think there's a possibility there's still DNA samples that have not completed testing? It's been since where we're at now, uh, July plus 2. So yeah, we're getting on up there with some of the DNA technologies and how fast they turn around. But still, you know, whenever you're in that type of environment, and there's potential of mixtures of DNA and blood samples, that I I have no idea how many. We haven't seen the returns on the um, uh, search warrants that they will obtain from the house, and so we don't know how many blood samples they took, and it could be in the hundreds. And I would be surprised if it's not in the hundreds of blood samples. So labs could be backed up on that. Absolutely. Jocelyn had to heat up her lunch. Yeah, unsolved. I have no idea where that DNA was found. It could have been anywhere. Yes, we still have some Shawnees and Denny's, and we have it all. Georgia is just a hub of pancakes and waffles. I doubt you can go much of anywhere, and Georgia's probably the worst of all of them. We probably have more pancakes and waffle than anybody, and that's fair. That you feel that is accident left, absolutely is fair. That's just as good as my thoughts, and I always thought that it was accidentally left behind until I looked at some of that survey stuff, and he asked that question, did you leave anything behind? And, or did you, there was another statement in there about um, what did you do prior to leaving? Some things about like almost how could you stage it or make or leave a signature of your of who you were. Um, yes, that group of men that come through the house that looked to be marshals that didn't appear to be wearing anything protected when they came out. Yes, I would expect that they are exactly who you said, U.S. Marshals, and I would expect that they were part of a surveillance team. That was my impression at the time. And yeah, and he may have just simply dropped it out of his pocket. Absolutely. Steve, can you explain whether DNA tracing allows us to understand the time of signature? In other words, the timing is when the DNA was left, old versus new. Only when they identify the offender or the profiles and they link it to an individual, because that individual um, is going to have a digital footprint, is going to have a life, he's going to have a history of alibis or what, of if it's someone that was there, it just won't be the DNA itself. It would be everything about your life, just like you. That if your DNA is in your house, or if your DNA is at, say, a restaurant you only went to one time in your life, um, and they went in and processed it, and they found that DNA profile of yours inside that restaurant on that one time, and they came to you and said, "How did your DNA get in this restaurant or in this restaurant?" And through your uh, credit cards or check um, or through your memory or your vehicle. There's so many different things and different ways that you can be tracked that would show how your DNA profile would have been there only during that one time. And but you know, it it just doesn't have a timestamp on it. Not that I know of. Now, they may get the technology up to some point to be able to age DNA, because there's certain things about uh, drying times that you can look at certain blood stains and say, "Oh, this blood stain was left an hour ago," or "No, this blood stain is 5 hours old." There's certain things that happen. I don't know about DNA, but I do know about with blood. Steve, have you ever heard someone going in a house unaliving four almost adults in 10 minutes? Yes. Um, my first call, I was even before I was on the road. I was doing a ride along, and uh, but it was done with a firearm, not with a knife. But yes, um, and then I've seen other multiple victims. Um, I think the in that first one, it was four or five. And then several years later, I went to one when I was on the road, responded, and there was three in it, um, and not, you multiple victims like that is, it's not a run of the mill type of thing. And then of course you always see your singles and doubles; those are most common, um, but multiples, three pluses, in my world wasn't that common. right, let's see. And get kind of get caught back up. There we go. I got caught back up. This thing jumps sometimes. Like I say, I don't have Mrs. Steve. Yes. How much of a encounter and violence occurred in Ethan's and Xana's room? And is that how come we have survivors? Very possible. Yeah, there was a new lock that was put on. I remember they talked about that, um, and uh, who opened the door and how they opened it, I have no idea. And yeah, Mindy, about the phone with the Delphi being found her that is, um, you know, we don't know the full details or how much activities occurred in that crime scene and how spread out and how violent it was. And so sometimes everything happens in a very small area. And during the struggles, phone can fall out. And then by coincidence, you be placed on top of it. And we just don't know much right now about that at all. When Mrs. Steve and I recreate the scene, I'm probably only going to uh, give her about 30 seconds per victim for total transfers because a lot of damage. When you're in those struggles, a lot of things happen really quick. It's not a wrestling match, and so there's a lot of punches, a lot of things happen relatively quick, and I expect that for this timeline to be like it is. I expect that's what happened there. It was extremely violent actions in a very quick manner. All right, but anyway, like I said, I got everything for Mrs. Steve and I to do our testing. I have my Tyvek suits, and they even have dark clothing also. So we're going to be doing some uh, uh, time trials and also doing some blood stain pattern analysis and transfers from violent encounters. And then I'll be luminaling it to see what it looks like on both the dark clothing. And I'll photograph the dark clothing in natural light and not just in total darkness for the luminol reaction. But we'll see what's happening. Oh, Cecil Hotel, $2. Thank you. Appreciate your support. And but and then of course I've got some other testing I've got to do tomorrow. But some ballistics also on a cold case. But want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And if you enjoyed the show, absolutely give it a thumbs up, share it, like it, subscribe. We appreciate it. We can't do what we're doing and going out working without y'all's help, and we appreciate it. Yeah, my great hair. I'm trying to think of my father when he passed. He still had probably 90% of his hair. Um, I I don't know. I take it it's just genetics. All right. All right, guys. But y'all be safe out there, and we'll have something tonight. I don't know how much we'll get done today, but we'll have some of the testing, and Mrs. Steve will be able to give you her 2 cents tonight also. And see y'all soon. Bye-bye.